Hey everyone, welcome to Jetstream Sessions, brought to you by Airbridge, airbridge.io, the leading MMP trusted by more than 500 brands in over 10 countries. I'm Roy Nam, CEO and co-founder of Airbridge. In this series, we sit down with industry experts, partners, and innovators from around the world to dive into real strategies, ideas, and experiences that drive results. So according to RevenueCast 2025 report, APAC users now pay nearly as much for subscriptions as users in North America and Western Europe. 35.99 in North America, 33.95 in Western Europe, and 32.90 in APAC. So they're pretty much the same. That's why Japan and Korea have become prime markets for global subscription app expansion. Today, we're diving into one of the most challenging and rewarding expansion strategies for subscription apps, cracking the Korean and Japanese markets. So I'm joined by Alan Park, Head of Marketing at AIX, a leading consultancy helping subscription and gaming apps localize and scale across Asia's most competitive markets, Korea and Japan, Japan and Korea. From onboarding and paywalls to creative strategy and user behavior, Alan's team, AIX, has helped global apps succeed where many struggle. If you are a US or European founder eyeing APAC, this conversation is a must. So I want to welcome you, Alan.
Thanks for having me, Roy. And very much excited to sit here with the Airbridge team. And it's actually my mission to really, talk about the Japanese and the Korean cultures and, share those information to help European and, American-made apps and mobile games to grow even more in these markets. So very excited to sit here, and I promise you this session will be much helpful and insightful, and actually help you grow in these markets. So thanks for having me, and thanks for watching this session, everyone.
That's great. That's great. I've been a huge fan of your and AIX webinar series. So could you tell us more about AIX and your journey there? Specifically, how did you and the team come up with the business idea of helping global apps enter the Japanese and Korean markets?
Yeah. First of all, thank you very much for listening to our webinars, because it's always a pleasure to meet someone who's actually been watching, our webinars and following our content. And the reason why we started, providing those webinars on our own is because there are so many great apps and mobile games out there.
Truly.
That's launched in Japan and Korea, but it's just that, we just realized that, with a little bit of help on localization, maybe applying those cultural preferences on the creatives, and maybe choosing the right UA channels will help them to even grow more. So we decided to provide the insights and the information and the cultural preferences that might be helpful for these global apps and mobile games to grow even more.
Truly. I mean, I've been meeting with a lot of these founders in the US or from Europe, talking about these organic traffic coming from Japanese and Korean markets. But they actually have no idea how to start, entering these markets.
Right.
And as you mentioned, just with the help of small optimization and localization and all of these practical tips, they can do so much better in these markets. And maybe that's some of these areas that you can shed light on today. Like many North American and European founders find the Japanese and Korean markets challenging or intimidating. However, I'm sure you've encountered success stories that prove otherwise. Could you share one or two inspiring examples of like North American companies successfully entering these markets?
Okay, sure. So one of our clients, Slopes, is actually an Apple Design Award winner in 2022, and is growing over the past few years, and especially in Japanese market. So for the Slopes market, we've helped them with understanding the users and what they prefer and what are their characteristics in when they go on to skiing and snowboarding, and choosing the right keywords and applying the right creative preferences, and we help them grow organically for sure, and also finding the right partner in regard to your service. Also help them gain trustworthiness to the local users. So those examples, and this example itself can serve, I guess, set a good example of how the global services can succeed in the Japanese market. And both in Japan and Korea, YouTube and Netflix, those global giants are succeeding greatly. And I think but interestingly enough, Google is the biggest search engine in Japan. Like 80% of the market share goes to Google. But in Korea, I'm sure Roy, you are familiar with this. Brand name Naver is actually having more search engine market share than Google.
Yeah.
So, but YouTube has the biggest market share in Japan and Korea both. So I think why that happened will be a big topic that we will discuss today. But I think providing your unique service, whether it's made in America, Europe, or anywhere in the country, if you are finding the needs in these markets for a certain group of users, you will be able to succeed. So what you need to know is what these users really want and need, and how you communicate them with the users.
Totally.
Yes.
So the name of the app that you just shared with us is Slopes.
Yes.
It's a skiing and snowboarding apps.
Exactly. Yes.
Got it. So initially, when they enter, the Japanese market, what were the challenges that they faced?
So obviously the language. So they wanted to they translated their English titles to Japanese by machine translation. And they also used the machine translation to localize their text on the creatives, like screenshots and the icons and things like that. But I'm sure you've been in their shoes too, but machine translation, especially with the development and improvement of the AI, is getting more accurate. But it doesn't quite yet to serve the connotation of the language. So, and even though the translated title and subtitles and the description convey the same meanings, it doesn't mean that those keywords are the ones that are most effective, right? So those localization and then the keyword optimization and finding the right culturally appropriate creatives were their challenges.
Got it. So AIX definitely helped them, across their journey to be successful in the Japanese market.
Yes.
Is the app now well adopted by all these skiers and snowboarders in Japan?
I'm sure there are still a long way to go, for sure. But I did hear that the Japanese market now has the third most user population of the service out of the other countries.
Got it. So Japanese market used to be one of the markets with just the potential, and they wanted to tap in to this market.
Right.
And with the help of AIX and localizing their ASO, screenshots, and all these creatives, as well as talking with the right partners to work with in the market, now they're gaining traction in the market and it's actually delivering the third largest revenue and the user base to them. Yeah.
Yes.
Great. Okay. So we actually want to deep dive into this topic, and maybe the first thing I want to do is the myth debunking. So please tell me, what's the number one myth global founders need to debunk before entering either the Japanese or Korean market?
Yeah, I guess there are several things that I want to share, but definitely one of the biggest myths is that the Japan and Korea being considered as the same market.
Yeah.
So yes, geographically they are very nearby. So if you get on an airplane, it's going to take about 2.5. And you will get it from Seoul to Tokyo. It's not that far away, and there is no time difference. So it is easy to think that these two countries are the same, but it's actually not. So when you consider really advancing into the APEC market, especially Japan and Korea, you really need to think Japan and Korea differently. The languages are different, the cultural preferences are different, and what's more, I guess, decisive and what makes users decide to convert onto your services are totally different. So that's one myth that I really want to challenge and break apart. And then the second one would be that many of the service providers outside of Japan and Korea tend to believe on the stereotypes. Japan being so positive on the animes, and Korean being maybe applying those Korean traditional tourist spot images would gain you better conversion ratio and things like that. But stereotypes sometimes work as long as it matches your services. So if you can create a anime style character, for example, for your service, and the users don't find it awkward or inappropriate, it's going to be a plus for sure. But if it has zero connection to animes or Korean traditional palaces or K-pops and things like that, it's just going to make your users realize that why this character has to be in anime character and anime style. So be careful with the use of the stereotypes and what are widely known as the Japanese and the Korean cultures.
That makes perfect sense. I mean, as a Korean, I know that these countries are totally different.
Yes.
So if you were an app founder, I would definitely advise you to pick one of these two, either one of these two, or if you want to go into both of these markets, you need to treat them, totally as two separate markets. That's kind of a very important advice that we want to give out to you today. And maybe could you elaborate further on these cultural differences and maybe any kind of differences that would matter to the app founders between Japan and Korea?
Yeah, sure. So I want to bring into cultural analysis that's studied and developed by Hofstede. And so Korea and Japan actually share great commonalities in terms of this country as a whole, cultural preferences. So both Japan and Korea work hard today for better tomorrow. So they endure the pain for their better futures and things like that. But there's one huge difference in the cultural analysis, which is the motivation towards achievement. So Japan has at least like 60 more points toward motivation towards achievement than Korea. So both countries work hard. And one may easily think that that's because you want to achieve something. But Korea, surprisingly enough, has a very low score on it. And I thought about it, and then my conclusion is that the Japanese people and Korean people, when they work hard, their motivation for working hard is usually for not getting behind, not to get behind in the competition. So Roy, I think you are familiar with how competitive it is in Korea, in your work environment, and so in Korean term, 빨리빨리 is very famous term. Can be
Maybe you have heard about this term 빨리빨리 in one of these K-dramas.
Right.
Totally agree with you.
Yes, it can be translated into quickly. So what can be done quickly means you are competitive, right? You are very competent on it. But Japan, on the other hand, since they are working hard, is motivated to achieve their own goal, they really want to make sure that their action, that their choice matters for that specific goal. So they are very meticulous, and it takes time till accepting new and making a decision. So this cultural difference actually can be applied and can be easily found on those screenshot and the onboarding and paywall examples. So when you get to apply these into your app services or mobile games, I think it can help you grow in these markets.
Totally. So the fast tempo thing about Korean people, they don't want to fall behind the trend.
Right.
They don't want to get they're always FOMO'd into these new trends.
Exactly.
And definitely this kind of FOMOing really matters to them. Whereas for Japanese, culture, because even though it may take a little bit of time for them to make a decision, they're really meticulous, careful enough to consider many, many components of your service and finally make a decision.
Exactly.
Makes sense. Okay. So I want to actually talk about some of the practical things that would really be helpful to these app founders out there, and it's about the ASO and paid marketing, paid advertising. So the cultural differences that you just shared with us likely affect how companies should approach localization. So could you elaborate on how differences in consumer behavior impact App Store optimization, particularly the screenshots and the titles and descriptions, and I want to also talk about the paid advertising creatives as well. Yeah.
Sure. Let me first get on to the paid as creatives. So I brought an example here between a Japanese-made OTT service and a Korean-made OTT service. And these, ads are used to advertise in 2025. And the Japanese example is called Unext, and the Korean one is TVing. So the copywritings on the Japanese side usually, talk about all episodes can be, broadcasted to you, and all games of certain, baseball team can be, watched on the OTT services. So the term all tend to be focused. On the other hand, the Korean side, the term trending was new, and only on TVing are relatively more preferred. So this example can, be correlated to the cultural differences. Japanese, okay, if you pay for this OTT service, you will have access to all. So meaning that's more reliable, and there's no extra question. Okay, I can watch this episode. How about the next one? So it resolves all those possible questions that the users might have. On the other hand, the Korean examples, it talks about the trend. So like, what is something that everyone knows about? So like, I should know to not get behind, not to fall behind, right? And only on TVing, the exclusiveness, the originality also makes the service more unique. Well, this can be true to any other cultures, but especially Korea being compared to the Japanese services, there's only one exclusive. Those terms seem to be more highlighted in these paid examples. Yep. Some other examples in the paid ads is that I brought the fitness apps. So as you can see, Roy, the Japanese examples have a lot of text, a lot of information on these small banners. On the other hand, the Korean examples tend to be very quick to the point, and very trendy catchphrases. So, yep. Yeah, but at the same time, the designers will probably don't really like having so much text on it because it doesn't look very nice in a certain way. But in a culture like Japan, providing more reliable information and in what way this is beneficial is very important. Let's talk about some screenshot examples. So this is Dragon Ball Z games. It's exactly the same game in Japan and Korea, but the characters are prioritized in Japan. So this is not just one or two the most popular characters, but it's just group of characters that are relatively more popular than other characters. So impact on the Korean side. Okay, I don't know what you like. I don't know what's your favorite. So I brought to you the all characters are the Japanese preferences. And more examples. So this is the same game as well. The Japanese ones, especially one on the left corner, top left corner. So okay, the main characters same on the left side. On the right side, the Japanese character, screenshot has the female characters, right? But the Korean example now has male characters as well. So Japanese definitely prefers a more mild and soft and cute and pretty female characters. And a very striking service from last year. Sure. I also added the American a screenshot here. Japan, smiling face, very cute, very mild and light tone in the background colorings, but in Korean and American example, the face is more intense and it's showing more about the in-game plays. Yeah, so when you try to advance to the Japanese market, try to make it more mild and gentle. And in Korea, make it intense and impactful. Genshin is still one of the top subculture game. And again, America, Korea, and Japan comparison. Even though the first screenshot for all these countries are the female characters, one in Japan tends to be more cute and younger, so more mild and soft choice of the screenshot. It could have been just a result of A/B testing, But I think the results in Japan resulted in having that more mild childlike character had a better performance than more mature female characters. And the Japanese example doesn't really have a male character up to like third screenshot, but in Korea and America has the popular male character on the second screenshot.
Really interesting. Yeah.
And puzzle game like Royal Match, going back to more text information on your creatives can be more important. The American and the Korean one, I'm not quite sure what were their reasoning behind not having a text at all on the creatives, but the American and the Korean examples do not have a certain catchphrase on their creatives, but Japan had text information. So information and more reliability and understanding perfectly about the service for the Japanese users are getting more important. More examples from the games, text infos, more impactful and eye-catching designs for America and Korea. So in a nutshell, for Japan, more images people are used or characters are used and information provided with more text and cute, mild, and easily attractive female characters are more preferred. In Korean, trending and exclusiveness are highlighted. And less text, focus more on your impactful designs. And cute female characters mixed with intense male characters. So what was applied in other markets might work for Korean market in that connotation.
So this is really, helpful. And insightful as well. I could definitely see a lot of these differences between Korean and Japan and Korea examples, especially, from the screenshots that you just shared with us. And it's almost like, you need to ask yourself, why should I choose you? So let's just say that you're targeting Japan market and Korean market. You need to ask yourself, suppose that you are the consumer there, why should I choose you? And that slide that you just, showed us really just tells us everything about what you should highlight to the end consumers in these markets. For example, in Korea, you need to highlight, that your app is really trendy and exclusive.
Right.
So you need to create this kind of, FOMO feeling around this app. And that's how you persuade the Korean end consumers. Whereas for the, Japanese market, you need to really be very specific and provide all the details with more text, more images. And definitely you mentioned that cute, female characters are more preferred by the Japanese end consumers, especially when it comes to the gaming apps.
Yes.
So definitely these kind of examples show you how important it is for you to localize the ASO and ad creatives, tailoring the needs of the local end consumers. So I want to maybe talk a little bit about the UA channels. So I know that when it comes to global ad founders, they will be likely using some of these common channels like Meta, Google, TikTok, or Apple ads. Now Apple ads, then Apple search ads. So, but it's intriguing that some of these rewarded ad channels are particularly effective in Korea and Japan. Why is this? And are there specific rewarded channels or approaches that new entrants should consider?
That's a very important question because I think I forgot to mention this in the debunking question. But one of the questions that I get all the time from the global app providers that the local channels in Japan and Korea would perform better than the global channels like you mentioned, Google, Meta, TikTok, maybe Twitter, and Apple ads. So sometimes it's true, but most of the times, that's why it's a miss. Most of the times, the global channels may work and perform better than the local channels. Yeah, obviously, there are tons of variables on a successful performance marketing for sure, but the local channels, when you think about it, when you consider testing those local channels in Japan and Korean market, you really want to understand that the big ones like Line and Yahoo for Japan and Naver and Kakao in Korea for Korea may not be your first first priority choice when you try the local channels. And you brought the reward-based medias in Japan and Korea, and might be a better alternative to the bigger channels like Line and Yahoo or Naver and Kakao, because first of all, firstly, Japan is called poikatsu.
포이카츠.
Yeah, in Japanese term, it can be translated into point accumulation activities. So even before all this development in the ad tech and the martech, Japanese people were already doing the point accumulation activities, meaning they did something for a reward. So the service providers, whether it's an app or a product, they are so used to making an action for the sake of reward, but it doesn't, well, cherry pickers are there for sure, but since they are so used to it, the users thinking process is like, okay, that's the service that I'm already interested. Why not use it and get some reward? Okay. So those economically, I guess, more productive, gives them an extra motivation to start using your service. So now there are improvement in the offer walls and more improvement in these point activity websites. So in Japan, you can try like Mopi, Point Income, and the offer walls on the Japanese manga apps. And that's another thing about this reward system, right? There are so many users who read the manga apps, and I mean, I talked about anime culture in Japan, but manga is the origin of those animes in a way, right? So users can participate on those reward-based offer walls on those manga apps to read more mangas by playing some puzzle games or participating on the surveys, and maybe download the fitness app and challenge your 3-day in a row workout challenges. So and when we talk about those reward apps, those ad spaces can be provided and purchased through local ad networks in Japan, like AmoAd and maybe Jux ad networks. So these kind of strategic approach towards the local channels actually will help you gain more growth in the Japanese market.
Got it.
Yep. And Korea, relatively, the reward-based media is relatively new to the Korean market than Japan, but still, medias like AdPop and the TNK are bringing those reward-based services, and at the same time, similar to the Japanese manga apps, Korean webtoons, web and cartoon, Korean together. So just like reading mangas on your app, webtoon is a similar thing. So they offer these offer ad spaces, and TNK and services like AdPop, help the advertisers ad on these apps. Meaning, so like a lot of users are paying and paying for reading more webtoons. So why not try using these reward-based Korean local channels to get your users to participate, start using your services or playing your games, and while you give a little bit of reward to the users to read some webtoons and stuff.
Got it.
Yep.
Just to summarize, I think what Alan just shared with you, like 2 things, which is great news. You can still rely upon some of the global media platforms like Google, Meta, TikTok, X, and Apple Ads to initially enter these markets and scale out to a certain stage. And once you actually, reach a certain stage that you are stabilizing these, global media platforms, and with the help of these local creatives and all that, you are gaining traction. Then what you want to do next is definitely consider some of these local media platforms. And as Alan just mentioned, Line and Yahoo, Naver and Kakao, certainly you want to tap into these, media platforms someday, and maybe in a later stage of your growth. But if you're actually entering the mid stage of your growth, certainly rewarded ad platforms, like in Japan, you mentioned AmoAds or Jux. In Korea, there are like 2, like Ad Popcorn and TNK Factory. So these kind of like rewarded ad platforms are well utilized even amongst the domestic advertisers. And certainly people are used to it because as you mentioned, a lot of people read online comics and they use a lot of apps related to these like contents. And sometimes they don't want to pay for these contents.
Right.
So they might want to just like, get some reward by installing some other apps from the offer walls that sit inside these apps and then just, earn the points, like poikatsu culture that you just mentioned. So certainly, if you are a fitness app, AI chat utilities, or anything, if it's definitely related to the contents themselves, certainly you should consider using some of these local ad channels and with the help of the agencies like AIX. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Ray, thanks for your summary. Just to add a couple notes to that summary is that, for the subscription apps and how you might want to use this, reward-based, medias and platforms, I want to clarify that, subscription apps into hard paywall subscription apps and the soft paywall subscription apps.
Yeah.
And the reward medias will be more effective if you are soft paywall. So if you are offering your users some sort of freemium services or free content that make users to come back every day. For example, maybe fitness, you can set up your maybe daily challenge or things like that. Then you can easily set a certain event where you want to give your users reward, but it's at a point where the users get really benefit, get more benefit if they subscribe. Then the reward-based platforms will be more effective if you're a soft paywall. But hard paywall is going to be quite complicated and tricky to set the right event to give the users reward. Because when users come in, they're immediately asked if you want to subscribe or not. Right? So then, it's gonna become whether you subscribe, you get reward, but then, it's going to increase the rate of cherry pickers, so you don't want that. So for those services, I would definitely recommend the local DSP channels, like AMOAD, APR in Japan, and some other NCPI local channels in Korea, like N-Switch. 10K Factory is also part of that, and then maybe Kaoli.
Got it. So thanks for clarification. So the apps with the soft paywall, because you have freemium features, like you can offer these free features so they can use this app and see how it goes with them. And if they really feel the value, they can be converted into paid users. So it makes sense for them to use these rewarded ad platforms. Whereas for the hard paywall services, because the onboarding is so like the paywall is so upfront to them, that even with these long CP rewarded ads, you're not gonna engage them really effectively. So it's better to just use the DSP services to acquire users. Yeah, that's great.
Exactly.
So maybe we definitely want to move deeper into user journey within the app. So definitely the onboarding and the paywalls. How does localization impact onboarding experiences in these markets?
Very big, because I brought some examples here too. It's just that the onboarding process and the preferences in Japan and Korea are quite different, meaning that giving the users the more preferred process of the onboarding and then more preferred copywriting can definitely help you gain more conversions. So let's get started with this hiking app example between Korean hiking app and the Japanese hiking app. So Triangle is a Korean app, and so it's very simple. So very similar to what you normally see in other global markets. So some permission ask, and then track user activity, feature intro, sign in. In Japan, already there are more pages on onboarding. So there are, in summary, in Korean onboarding, especially the feature introductions, there are less text and shorter headings. As you can tell, the bolded text are the headings on both markets. The Japanese ones are sentences. In Korean, it's just a phrase. So always think of a little bit more simpler and quick to the point, because Korean fast tempo, and then the Japanese more reliable, and then textual information. So I think that's also applied in these onboarding preferences. And more examples: e-payment services in Korea, e-payment services in Japan, Naver Pay versus PayPay. So we mentioned Naver and Yahoo when we discussed
Yeah.
UA channels. So Naver Pay run by Naver, and PayPay is actually Yahoo's PayPay e-payment system. Again, on the onboarding, there are less text on Korean and then shorter headings, and designs are quite patternized. So you can easily think these as screenshots even, but that's just feature intro in the onboarding. But on the other hand, the Japanese examples, there are more graphics, so more infographics are used and detailed headings and longer text to describe thoroughly about what this app can do for your service. So those are some of the onboarding examples that I wanted to bring here. And similar differences can be found on the paywall structures. So the OTT services in Korea, TVing and Wave here, it doesn't really have so much of the design element in here. It's just very simple, quick to the point. What are the services provided through this premium subscription services? But interestingly enough, they always add this recommended and the discount ratio and the price before the discount. So quick to the point on the paywall Korean services, what the users want to know is the most important information that you want to bring to the Korean users are how much money you can save.
Yeah.
You are actually paying for subscription, but discount is it's globally true, but it is especially true for the Korean cultures. So show discount rate and total amount of annual plans with monthly charged amount. And Japan, this is an OTT services paywall in Japan. It's called Abema. So this is all scroll down for sure, and just it's an OTT service. Yeah, there are certain content that you can watch if you subscribe, but there are all these detailed feature introductions.
This is really long. Yeah.
Very long.
Much longer than I expected.
Yeah. So the users can at any point of paywall can click onto the CTA and then start subscription, but the scroll can be down to 6 different screens. Yep. So provide a structured help center with FNQs on paywall is a usual action and a characteristic that you can find in the Japanese paywalls. So again, simple and short, focus on discount and then the financial benefits. And Japan, well, price is important, but also at the same time, let the users know that this is worth paying for.
Got it.
Yep, some dating apps. This is not a subscription based. It's actually an IAP, but it always starts with. It might be worth trying to start your paywall CTA with a gifting message. So give them some free in a purchase item, and then let them try it and show the paywall is strategy you might want to try. And same as the OTT service examples, the discount and then the price amount before the discount, and put a mark on your most, beneficial item with the recommend or most popular, mark on it.
Okay.
Japan, again.
Wow. Okay.
That's the
now
paywall.
I can see the pattern. Yeah, it's
Yes.
really long and very detailed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did pick one that's more striking. Not every services are this long, but definitely almost all Japanese subscription-based apps have longer paywalls than the Korean ones. So this is a paywall of dating app in Japan. So as you can see, there are more graphics, more uses of people's photos and the infos, and all the terms and conditions on the paywall. Yes. List of plans, comparison table, step-by-step justifications, main points, like premium plan features, again, comparison and notes about purchasing plans, the terms and conditions. Then you will be asked to whether you really want to subscribe or not. Yep, so patternized comparison, simple, short, focus on price, detailed and very, very long, focus on benefit and the infos that your subscription plans provide for the users. And if it's a service that using an actual people's photos, are meaningful, you can use them. So some case studies on the paywall in Korean side. 여기 어때? It's a booking service. So their case study, so their paywall used to show the price before discount, and they just had the discount rate. But after showing the discount ratio, and then the after total amount after discount rate is applied, they've their conversion and then revenue increased, and then they also changed the design for the reviews and the number of reviews, and those I think also make sense to the Korean users when they really make the decision. So try to be very, very, very quick to the point on this price and the reviews. Those two variables are the most important factors for the Korean users when they make decisions on the paywalls. On the Japanese case study, on the other hand, time tree is a schedule and then the task management service, the biggest one in Japan. And according to their case study, they changed from this price-focused paywall to more emphasizing paywall. They actually had close to twice more conversions. So be empathetic with your users and let the Japanese users realize that the service provider understands your pain, your need, and then explain to them that your service can actually help to solve those questions, fill those needs. Then you're likely to gain more conversions.
Got it. I mean, this really resonates with me as a Korean end consumer myself. Well, I mean, I'm immersed in this environment as well, like as one of these consumers. Like when I subscribed to Disney Plus, for example, I didn't even care of any other features that they're having. I was just so into Star Wars, and I knew a lot of people were exclusivity, right? And then I knew that some friends around me were watching some of these episodes of one series that were exclusive in that platform. And I kind of like checked on the pricing and, oh, you guys have a discount. Great, 40% discount. And I just immediately purchased it without thinking too much on all these other episodes or features or anything like that. And that's really interesting case that you brought up, the time tree case that, it was more like a price-focused paywall, but now that they have changed to, elaborating more on the benefits and the features and the problems that they can help solve by using this app, by having this kind of empathy with the Japanese consumers, it really worked better.
Yes.
It's really interesting.
Yes. Yep, so in a nutshell, Japan, more visual elements, illustration photos, definitely detailed and long descriptions. So give them, simply put, give them time and understand your service. Japanese, users may take the longest time from install to first subscription, but they will reward you with better retention and better engagement. The Korean ones, and Korean users prefer simple design, just like Roy's testimonial with the Disney
Quick to the point discount.
Discount, quick to the point, less description. Yep, and also show the discount ratio and the amount that they have to pay and the number of reviews. How many people actually liked it? And when you have not so much of reviews, other than that, another advice that I can give you is if you won a reward somewhere. If it's like officially renowned, it's okay if it's not Korean or Japan, provided award. If it's globally renowned service, the Korean users and also Japanese users will immediately think that, okay, this is worth trying.
Yeah, the proof.
Yes.
Yeah, it makes sense. So obviously, these onboarding and paywall look so much different in Korea and Japan. But do users in these markets also retain differently? Because it seems like Japanese users take longer time to convert. And how does this affect their retention rate afterwards?
Wish I had more detailed and accurate data for that, but it's usually very exclusive for the clients' raw data. So, but I did hear from our my friends, colleagues, and former clients that the Japanese users really take the longest time to first convert. But when they convert and start subscription, whether it's widely known brand or not, their retention is a lot longer than the Korean users. The Korean users may, convert more easily, especially when you offer good discount and maybe just good price and unique service. But their quickness to follow up with newer services and maybe cheaper services, they can churn out a lot easier than the Japanese users.
And that's true, I think.
So, well, OTT service is very unique in a sense that once Apple TV has a exclusive content like maybe Severance. I'm very looking forward to the new season of that. But they might cancel the subscription on this Disney Plus and then switch to Apple TV. But in Japan, they would rather stay on already subscribed service and then subscribe to a new one if there is a new service that they really want to subscribe. But in a nutshell, you really want to make sure that you are giving enough information, giving enough benefits, and then the worthiness of your service to the Japanese users.
Truly. So I think you actually, shared with us a lot of examples. So more examples to be found on, AIX website in the blog. So please check it out. So now on to a more strategic question, like considering localization of components such as ASO, paid ads, onboarding, and paywalls that we have all discussed, how much time and resources should companies realistically allocate? And how would you prioritize these localization tasks? And what are the critical must-do action items if you prioritize amongst these, action items?
So ideally speaking, the localization for the screenshots and onboardings and the paywalls have to be done. Like it's really hard to prioritize just one over the other.
Okay.
Because, screenshot is the gate to your service.
Truly.
Like maybe as creatives are the first one to be checked too, but App Store, Play Store are the place where people convert and actually, make decision to install.
Yeah.
So the screenshot have to be localized.
Truly.
And the keyword in the title and subscription too, it should be optimized.
Okay.
And now your users installed it. Now they are your user. But it doesn't mean that they are necessarily giving you the benefit or the profit for you guys, the providers. So having the users convert to actual subscribers is another important journey for the providers, right?
Yeah.
And optimizing this onboarding and the paywall then can help you, increase the conversion rate and the number of the users who actually subscribe your service. So all these three components have to be prioritized if you really want to grow in the Japanese and the Korean markets.
Got it. So it's like if I am to just even split it into step 1 and 2, I think you're right that you need to improve your ASO, localize the ASO, onboarding, paywall, all three together to have a decent conversion rate from install to trial and trial to paid. Maybe you can check out these metrics on platforms like RevenueCatter, Adaptee. And once you actually have, if you have these metrics ready, and now if you want to scale out, then probably you should tap into these UA piece of the, growth marketing.
Yeah, that's the exact process of growth in these markets. I guess, it's same for any other countries or cultures, but it's just that, you might need a little extra effort on the localization part.
Then how long does it take? So let's just say that if any one of these customers work with AIX.
So let's say we will, take about 1 or 2 weeks to do the research for that specific, service area. So we will work on the keyword research, we will work on the social listening, and we will do the SDP analysis and the SWOT analysis. So you really want to understand the current potential users of your, of your kind of service. Then you get to use what you will understand what are the keywords that the current Korean or Japanese users talk about in their own language in regard to a service like yours. And with that, research of the 1 or 2 weeks, then you will have more profound decision making on what copywritings or what kind of creative elements you want to focus on your screenshot or onboarding and the paywall. Then making all of those new creatives or setting up the UI UX, changing the structure of the onboarding or adjusting your paywall may take time. From maybe 2 weeks, maybe even longer than a month, based on how much effort and how much change you really want to commit to the localization. But in a nutshell, I would say at least a month would be expected to do the localization and to do the proper optimization. But as you guys all understand, this is an ongoing process. So to get started with maybe a month, but ideally speaking, this is, you really want to, have a service like Revenue Catalog that be ready to really study on your metrics and also, be friend with, maybe, MMPs like, Airbridge and, to tap onto, UA channels and optimization. Also, be the master of Play Store and the App Store, connect the console data to really understand what are your A/B test resultings and things like that. So maybe maybe AIX or any other local agencies may help you to get started with in your growth in the Japanese and the Korean markets. But from there, you can still and you can keep on partnering with us, but you can keep keep on doing this, optimization and then A/B testing process even in-house.
Got it. I think it's like much shorter than I expected. Like 2 weeks of initial research, you'll get some of these insights, and now you understand that what people, who are the competitors in these markets, and what are the local keywords that you should focus on, and some of the copyright examples. And with that, you localize it from taking 2 to 4 weeks of time, and after 4 to 6 weeks, you have it ready. So I think it's much shorter than I expect. It's great. So could you actually share maybe just 1 or 2 of these case studies of AIX clients who are applying a step-by-step localization approach, and some who are already achieving early success?
Sure. So we did ASO for keyword optimization for a service called Timo. It's a task and schedule management application that's developed in European countries, but it's for ADHD patients services. So very meaningful for social goods as well. So we did optimization in Japanese, and then it helped them to gain, I think at least 1.5 more impression on the app stores and Play stores. So I think even just applying the right keywords for a service like this, especially your service is gaining some organic impressions or installs already, I think it will easily give you a heads up start. So, and I think it's a service from Korea called TimeFlick, and it's an Apple Watch watch face app, and we changed the screenshots and help them gain. Their conversion was improved by about 60%. And
60%.
Yes. Okay. And then their CPI on Apple Search Ads then was decreased by about, I think 46%.
What?
Yeah.
That's great.
So I think they managed to decrease the average CPI just switching to more preferred screenshots in the Japanese for the Japanese users.
Got it. It's great studies. Thank you. So today we talked about really many examples and insights and tips and practical, growth hacks. So before we wrap up, could you share some quick growth hacks or practical tips that global founders can easily apply immediately after listening to this podcast?
Yes. So immediately, I think, it's a very hard adverb to really achieve, but I think even despite of all these cultural preferences that I shared and introduced, but what you can start today is maybe go ahead and then look back into your service again. Like, what are your USP? What are your originality? What are the benefits that you give to the users? And what are your strengths? And really, have a profound, concrete ground on that again, and do look up whether your strengths and your originality and the USP will make sense to the Japanese and the Korean users. If then, you can discuss a company like us or anybody who is more, familiar with these cultures. Then let's talk about how we might want to communicate your strengths and your USP to the Japanese and Korean users. So I think, going back to the myth debunking, replies that I mentioned in the earlier part of this section, people, when they try to, the global providers, when they approach to the Japanese and the Korean markets, they tend to fall into those stereotypes. But I think more important thing is your service. So I like to coin a very popular, I guess, proverb from Martin Scorsese, the movie director. It's actually introduced by director Bong upon his Academy Award winning ceremony. What he mentioned is that most personal is most universal. So I think it can be applied to app providers too. Most true to your own service will be universally accepted, even in Japan and Korea. So I think that's what I want to bring in. I apologize. This is not immediate action that you can do, use this keyword or try this channel. But I think that's just from my experience, that's the most important.
Got it. Always go back to the classics. Always go back to the basics all the time. So I mean, like the example of this app, slopes that you brought up earlier. This discussion is the perfect example. Like, who would ever imagine? Because Japan is famous for skiing and snowboarding culture, and who would imagine that skiing and snowboarding app from the global market can be successful in a Japanese market and loved by all these skiers and snowboarders? So, really, definitely, those unique values that you can present in these markets really matter to the local consumers as well. Yeah. So, most important questions: how can we, the audience, find you?
Okay.
Where?
So AIXinc.io is our website, and so you can just reach out to us through the website, and AIX Post, AIXPOST.com is the media that we show our case studies and inside articles. So you can find more information there, and that's where you can find our previous webinars as well. So you can reach out through AIX Post as well, but before reaching out to us, just visit AIX Post and find other insights or information that you want.
Truly, because today, what we discussed today is just the tip of the iceberg. When you visit AIX website and the blog, you'll find a lot of these articles and previous webinars that they did. And I think we're easy and we're always accessible. You can find us on LinkedIn, and we're going to be at MAU and APS, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So you can actually meet us in person if you're being in MAU. Or probably APS Berlin later this year. Yeah.
Yes.
So everyone, really, thank you for joining today's podcast. And Ellen, especially, thanks so much for joining us today. Tons of practical insight and strategy that I know our listeners will take away. So if you're looking to enter the Korean or Japanese market, check out AIX and connect with Ellen and his team. And of course, if you want to make sure your measurement foundation is solid, you need to measure things to scale out, of course. Airbrush is here to help you track, optimize, and grow every step of the way. So thanks for tuning in for Jetstream Sessions. Catch you in the next one. Bye.
See you soon.